We're continuing on chapter 1 in the Haggah. So let's summarize where we're holding. We established that it's not what you think. Tzaddik, Rasha, and Beinani. When you say, my son should be a tzaddikal, or when you go to a Gadol Hador and you're going to someone you really believe is the greatest person out there, in a sense, you're most likely saying that he's a Rasha v'Tovlei, not a tzaddik, and halavai a Beinani. What's the definition of those? Tzaddik, we said, is someone who doesn't and cannot do anything wrong in thought, speech, or action. And it's almost like you know that to be true, because in marriage, right, how much does it take? How many wrongs are you allowed in a marriage before you've messed up on the marriage? What if you're 51% faithful?
No, it's not good.
How about 99? 0.9? Right. How about if you're a Gabbai Tzedakah and you're 99.9% honest? For 30 seconds a year, you're not honest. Just 30 seconds. What are you? A Ganav. So why would it be any different with Torah and Mitzvahs? The answer is very simple. Because we don't actually believe in Torah and Mitzvahs. We believe that there's a scorecard being kept by the big judge. And so, leave me alone. I only did one thing wrong, or 49% wrong. I'm okay. And Tanya is here to teach us that it's not a scorecard. It's your connection to Hashem. Elokus, godliness, is something that is real. It flows. If you're attached to Elokus, you're godly. There's no points. No one's keeping score for you. It's very simple. Are you godly or not? Torah Mitzvahs is godly. Avodas Hashem, you're connected to Hashem. And the energy flows. And if you're not, it doesn't. Now there's many Mamar Chazal, which we quoted last time, to corroborate this. And what you're saying is that when Chazal tell us that if you see someone doing an Aveir, never mind you doing an Aveir yourself, if you see someone doing an Aveir and you don't protest, then you're a Rasha. That's the halachic definition of a Rasha. Never mind that, if you're a man who doesn't learn Torah all day long when you're able to, and you're doing Bittul Torah, much easier for women, but Bittul Torah for a man means Chayev Kares. Right? So what are we saying? Let me phrase it in Hasidic Cheder terminology. Basically, if you don't learn Torah, you're going to Gehenna. Exactly. Right? That's what it says. But there's another way to phrase it. Right? You know what happens if you know what the punishment is if you decide to stop breathing for 5 minutes? The punishment is you're going to get strangled, chas v'shalom, to death. You're going to suffer a slow, painful death. Does that make sense to you? All I'm doing is nothing. I'm just sitting around and I'm just not breathing. I'm just stopping to breathe. I'm going underwater, God forbid, for 5 minutes. If you do that, the punishment is strangulation. Do you deserve strangulation for just doing nothing? But what's the answer? The answer is Shaita, Herzchaim. If you breathe, you're alive. If you don't breathe, you don't live. No one punishes you for not learning Torah. Get that straight. There is no punishment. Kores means a cutoff of your soul. If you learn Torah, you're connected. If you don't, you're not connected. What's the punishment? I don't know. There's no punishment. It's just you get chorus. No one's punishing you. No one cares. No one. Chorus is chorus in Igaras Hatshuva and Tanya Alter goes through it. Chorus is it is a physical thing also, yes, but not nowadays. Nowadays you don't really get chorus because you see people do Averis and they don't get cut off. But they do get cut off. What does that mean? If you're not connected, if you're not dovuk in Torah, you're not alive. You're going to suffer the consequences. There are consequences to whatever you do. If you're connected to Hashem, you're connected. If you're not, you're going to experience pain and suffering and difficulties, right? So we need to get out of this notion of the gotcha God, not to get you. And it's not. There's elokus, there's godliness. If you follow, if you're connected, you're connected. And that's what it means when the pasuk says, Haloi, al ki'ein elikai bekirbi, metzauni haroi sa'ele. It's a pasuk in Parashas Vayelech. Haloi is it not, Lamed Aleph, Is it not? Al kiyein elekai bekirbi. Metzauni aroi sa'ile. Because Hashem is not inside me, that's all this bad has befallen me. And you could say that wagging your finger and saying, because you don't listen to the Lord. That's why all this bad befalls you. Or you could say, no. If godliness is not flowing through you, you're opening yourself up to all negative spaces. And so you want Elokus to flow through. And that's, when you're a parent, you know that what's your job as a parent? The answer is to have Elokus, godliness, flow through you. And what we're going to learn now is how to do that. By getting in touch with who you are. But first, one little Haggah. It's got to do with understanding your insides and being able to make the energy flow through you. So we established that Tzaddik Rasha Beinani is not defined based on how much percentage of mitzvahs or averos you have, but rather based on who you are. So again, a Rasha is someone who does actively, thought, speech, and action, any avera. How much of a Rasha you are, Rasha B'Teva, Rasha B'Rale, how much, that's all dependent, right? How much do you do? But if you once in a while do, but not all, so you're Rasha B'Teva on the highest level, as we'll see later. What's a tzaddik? Tzaddik B'Teva, tzaddik B'Rale, depends how much you, right? How much you've overcome it. What's a Beinani? A Beinani is someone who didn't overcome it. A Beinani is the struggling Jew. Struggling Jew is...
What's the difference between a Rasha, a Tanya, and a Beinani then?
A Rasha B'Teva sometimes does something bad. Sometimes in a blue moon, once in a while, he falls into that addiction.
Right.
Or something. A Beinani never falls in, but he's always struggling.
He doesn't do the Averas, but he's always struggling.
Correct. When a man has a taiva to do an Aveira, the Aveira enters the thought for the Aveira enters his head. What does he do with it? Nothing. He pushes it away. He doesn't allow the thought to get in. If you can constantly do that, that's a
Now I
Beinani.
understand how the Beinani.
Exactly. Havaya should be a Beinani means, when you say I'm going to someone who's a tzaddik, you don't even mean a Beinani. You wish you were a Beinani.
Right? A Beinani is someone who doesn't do Averas, who just
Correct.
still has
But there's
the
no
time-
book
the
of
time to do
Rishayim.
Averas.
There's no book of Rishayim. There's a book of tzaddikim, and there's a book of Beinani. There's no book of how to be a Rasha, because you're not supposed to be a Rasha, right? And the example of this is, again, I think, Eretz Yisrael, we discussed, that's a place that lives in constant state of friction and war. It's already 76 years or whatever of the state. And what do you have there? 77, somewhere. And what do you have? Constant threat of annihilation. And if you stop for 1 second, what do you get? October 7th.
And if a person is constantly struggling and if they're like constantly struggling, but they're not that they're doing Averas still because they slip sometimes. Now what happens if after 120 and they go up? Do they go down because they slipped? So
Again, if a person slipped,
Yes,
you
you
say
say
Averas sometimes. They're the Russia. They're not
Right.
the Beinani. But
Yeah.
the Russia that's slipping sometimes. It's trying. It's struggling.
Right.
It's trying. It's struggling. Right? And like me. And what's going to happen to me after 120? I'm going to go down because.
so
I'm
first of all,
Russia.
we're not worried about 120. We're worried about now.
I'm never going to get to the Beinani. I'm not perfect.
We're trying to live a godly life now. You watch how once you understand the system, how the system operates, suddenly you get a power to activate godly forces in your life. How Hashem judges you, honestly, do you really care?
Well, if this
Well,
whole
well,
world
let
is
him judge
out
whatever
there
he
for the
judges.
next world and the whole world I'm living for the next
Okay,
world.
so
and
we
the-
need to let me jump to chapter 4.
Sorry.
And
No,
in chapter
that's
4,
the answer.
the Alter Rebbe is going to lay down a simple thing that the best place to be in. Do you want Olam Haba?
Yes, please.
Do you want it now?
No, thank you.
No. So you don't want it.
Why?
do.
Why shouldn't I want it
No.
now?
Basically, you're saying like, what would you prefer to live if? Would you prefer to live forever if you could theoretically?
No, no.
How about no, too much?
No, this world is a criminal.
Right. At some point, you want to leave, but you don't really want to leave. It's like an interesting situation that we have. I'm not sure how long I want to be here,
Enough
but
about that.
the Mishnah says, "Yafa sho achas, b'tshuva masim toivim."
Right.
Pirkei Avos where? Ba. Olam hazeh mikoch ha'olam haba. What does that mean?
Yeah, that's like what the
Because you can't get anything.
Sits
You
is
can't
there.
grow there and
Yeah,
can't
you only
connection.
get
There is no better place to be in.
because you can't
And
earn
Olam
more in the next
Hazeh.
world. That's what I always learned because you
Not
know
because you
do
can't.
mitzvahs.
Right. Not just because you can't earn more. It's much more than that. It's that this world you can actually do mitzvahs. Mitzvahs are godly.
Right.
It's eliki. It's a godly force. That's what a mitzvah
But in
is.
the next world, you're pure neshama. You are your eloquence.
That's so sad.
You're nothing else.
That's so sad to be as.
Then why is that the goal?
Why?
Because Torah mitzvahs, as we'll see in chapter 4, can only be performed down here in this world. There's
Why
only
is there
one
not?
place you can light Shabbos
What they
candles.
learn also.
What?
I thought they also
Even what they learn, they can't actually learn. The problem is like this. Basically, we'll see that and we'll jump in the gun. The problem is that in the next world, you get to experience what the mitzvahs were. And so you get to enjoy the nachas of what you were doing in this world.
2020 vision is.
The problem is exactly, but you can't do it. So now you realize Olam Haba is a place where you realize how awesome Olam Hazeh was.
That doesn't sound like Olam Haba. It should be back down.
Correct. What's the real Olam Haba?
We always learn.
What did you say? You want what?
To wish to be back down here.
Correct.
is not-
What's that called?
That's Gehenna.
Regret.
No, Tchias HaMesim. That's what it's called. And the ultimate goal is Tchias HaMesim, where we in this world, happy to be in this world, living forever in Olam Hazeh and
So
Gashmi.
why is it a punishment when they say you're going to have to come back if you do this?
The fact on the ground is that so long as Mashiach hasn't come, this world is a pruzlor within Olam Haba. Make no mistake, Olam Haba is a problem. Olam Hazeh is the solution. There's no better place to be in than right here, right now, right where you are. And you know that intuitively. You don't want to be you don't want to be dead. You're like, I'm not sure what I want. I want to be alive. I don't know. What you want to get to is a realization that the best, most awesome spot to be in is right where you are now.
Right, because that's our stage now. Because
No,
we
no,
feel happy.
no,
A
because
9-year-old wants to be in Olam Haba.
but when you hop that, you actually get excited over it because it's just an awesome place to
But
be
it's
in.
the same way the 7-year-old doesn't want to be married. He knows that that's the goal, but right now that's not where I'm heading. I'm 7.
7-year-olds actually.
Some they dream of being
They want to be a collar with a pretty girl.
7-year-olds are so happy. They like have such joy
They do.
in that space, and we need that same joy. Because it's not a fake thing. You are in the best place. There is no better place to be in than right where you are. But anyway, we need to get to that. So, le'at. Let's one step at a time. So, in the Haggah, the Alter Rebbe asks a question, and he says, but I don't understand. Because we know everywhere, right? Every one of us has been taught that it goes by 51%. A Beinoni is 50-50, and mitzvahs and aveiros. So he says he's gonna first of all deal with this in Haggah and then inside. Haggah. Umashu kosa b'zerach chelik aleph dafresh lamed aleph. There it says kol shem muatin aveinoi v'chulu. The what's a beinoni? Someone who has less, rather a tzaddik is less aveiros than mitzvahs. So that's true. What happens over there was Rav Amnuna asked this question of Eliyahu Hanavi, right? He shailas Rav Amnuna leEliyahu. He was asking about
I know it's where it is here, but where is
the
it
Zohar.
down from?
The Zohar says that Rav Amnuna asked Eliyahu Hanavi a question. He appeared to Elijah the prophet. Elijah appeared to him, and he said to him, "Explain to me why it is that tzaddik sometimes suffers." So Rav Amnuna understood that a Beinoni is someone who's 50-50. A tzaddik is 51%. But then Eliyahu tells him, no, it's not true. Avol, if he chuvas Eliyahu sham, what Eliyahu Hanavi answered him was, Pirus tzaddik beralehu, kama yishkasa beraya mehem na parashas mishmatim dileil. He answered him that what is it? It's what we said before. So Eliyahu told him it's not true. So why was Rav Amnuna thinking otherwise? Because the Shivim Panim Torah, the 70 faces to Torah. Therefore, understand this. Rav Amnuna said to Eliyahu, isn't a tzaddik someone who has 51%? Eliyahu answered him, no, it's not. It's what we said here. It's a Rasha is someone who does 1% of aveiros. A Beinoni is 0, but could have. And a tzaddik is someone who can't begin to have, right? So the question is, why was Rav Amnuna thinking otherwise? Because Rav Amnuna thought maybe there's Shivim Ponim LaTorah. Maybe there's another way to learn it. And Eliyahu told him, no, there is no other way to learn this one. A tzaddik cannot be someone who ever has even an entertainment of a thought of an aveira. Then he's not a tzaddik, right? That's what we established it. Sorry?
It's in a bunch of the shurim.
Yes, how does that make you feel to be Rishayim?
It's an interesting concept.
Are you okay with it?
We're processing.
Are you translating Russia into English?
Pretty much it.
What's English?
Evil.
Right, that's the problem. What is a Russia in Loshen HaGemara? Struggling.
Struggling. But a Binary is struggling.
No, a Bainani
I
is
know, but the word Dusha is not an
A Bainani is struggling and winning the struggle. A Bainani is an ordinary person who just doesn't succumb to the struggle. A Russia is challenged.
That's not so ordinary.
They doesn't what?
Doesn't succumb to a struggle? That's not ordinary.
Correct, but ordinary people can get there. You can't get to a point that you don't have a taiva. You could get to a point you control the taiva.
You could get
Yes,
to
you
a
could.
point where you don't have a time for a specific thing.
That is true, but that is also it's a gift from above. Correct.
But he could still
Now look
sign.
inside. Now he's going to address inside.
So we said, why did he ask the question that doesn't exist? Because he thought
He thought maybe there's a pshat that could say that that's what a Bainani is. And Eliyahu told him, no, there isn't. But it remains a fact that everybody talks about a tzaddik as 51%. That's the conversation. The Hodam Rinan Be'alma, that which is said elsewhere, I'm back inside. The Mechzal Mikri Bainani. Bainani is half-half. The Roiv Zuchuyo is Mikri Tzaddik. And if you have majority of merits, you call the tzaddik. You with me inside? Hu Shem Hamushal Le'inyan Schar Ve'oinesh. It's true. We're talking about a borrowed term of punishment and reward. So when we talk about reward and punishment, how much reward are you going to get? Yes, when you get to heaven, they're going to say, how much did you? Okay, you had 51%. Fine, we'll give you a reward. 51% the other way, punishment. That's true. Why? And if you should need a nacharuba, because judgment goes by majority. Umikri tzadik bedinoi me'achar shetzayich badin. You're called a tzadik bedinoi. You know, you ever see like Yechezkel Hanavi speaks about levo even. You know what levo even means? A heart of stone. You ever seen a heart made of stone? What does it mean, a heart of stone? Hearts are not made of stone. What does it mean?
You can feel.
It's a metaphor. You're not really made of stone. It's metaphoric. So too, over here, you're explaining it metaphorically. That is what a tzaddik is. But if you had 51% and 49% of Averis, you're actually a pure Rasha. Maybe Rasha v'toivloi, that could be, but a Rasha you are. Aval, le'inyan mitas shema toya ve'amayla. If you want to know what is the actual descriptive term, shel mailas and madregis chalukas tzadikim v'beinim, what is the tzaddik or beinini? Omer Razal, Chazal tell us very clearly. Tzadikim yetzer toiv shoiftan. Tzadikim are controlled by the positive good inclination. Shenemar, because David HaMelech said, "Velibi cholal bekirbi." Now, David actually, in a different conversation, why he wasn't born this way. He worked his way up.
I thought you can't.
So, essentially, what it means is, you'll tell us in chapter 14 that it's possible.
And that's how he was able to descend.
It's highly unlikely, but possible to get there, right? But also, most often the word is some people are born with a neshama of, like it's a holy neshama that's born that way, and it might not like.
Is it a holy vote?
Like, here's the question: what happens if a person's born with a tzaddik neshama, but he's born without any chinuch? So he was born into a family that didn't learn Torah mitzvahs, right?
Because
What
we're
was he
always
do?
looking for something.
He's searching for
Right. So, and hopefully he'll find it. So I was just thinking, there's a beautiful story of the Rebbe Maharash. The story is that he once went with some Hasidim, and two Gabayim and two Hasidim, I think it was, they traveled, they were living in Russia, and he travels to Paris. Paris is Western Europe, right? It's like the polar opposite of here. We live like the Borough Park shtetl is right next to Manhattan. In fact, almost like inside you, right, where you live. But in those days, they didn't live that way. They lived in a shtetl for real, and the shtetl was a place which was really and truly insulated. And then you had Paris. We had to go travel for a 24-hour train ride, and you got there. So he gets to Paris with his Hasidim, and he wants to check in to the most expensive hotel. I think it was called the Alexander Hotel. So he asked around, what's the most expensive hotel? Alexander Hotel, that's where he wants to go. He gets into the hotel, and the clerk looks at them, you don't look the part of the guy who's coming to this hotel. And the Gabayim said the Rebbe wants a place in the hotel. He says, how much is a room for the night? So he says, whatever, 100 francs. He says, that's the most expensive room. He says, no, that's the cheapest room. In a regular hotel, it's 5 francs. Oh, but yeah, the cheapest room is 100 francs. He says, no, upgrade, 200. No, upgrade, 500 suites. Is that the most expensive room you have? He's like, you want the most expensive room we have? 1,000 francs a night. Paying $100,000 a night for a room. He says, that's upstairs, that's the casino room. On the casino floor, that's where you get it. Rabbi Mara said, that's the one I want. He took a room for himself and a room for the Gaboim. The 2 Hasidim said, we'll go check down the motel next door, we're good. We don't need this place, thank you. So the Rabbi Marash looks in. The Rabbi Marash was very royal always. He used to wear like golden clothing and he was very dressed up as royalty. Goes up all the way into this room, upstairs, and he rests for a bit and then he comes out of the room. And the Gaboim are with him. See, behind, he wants to go to the casino. What do Rebbes do? He says he's going to the casino. He comes into the casino, he's walking around, and he's checking everyone playing cards, There were no slot machines, whatever they had in those days. But they were playing, and the lights on all the time, because the lights never go off over there. They still like that. So he's walking around, and it's a very, very, very expensive place. The Rabbi Marash is standing from afar, and he looks and he eyes a fellow. The guy's he looks like the mustache, French mustache going up, which is like the whole demeanor was clearly a very French nobleman. And he's sitting over there and he is playing cards. And he's also drinking a cup of wine. He's got a glass of wine in his hand and he's drinking. And the Rebbe eyes him out and the guy looks at him, he decides, he walks over to the guy. And as he walks over to him, he says to him in Yiddish, he says, Junger Mann, Yain Nesach is metame a Yiddish neshama. And then he said to him again, Junger Mann, Yain Nesach is metame a Yiddish neshama. The guy's done. And the Rabbi Marash, after he finished that, he left the casino and he walked outside and he was so shaken that when he walked outside he was like sweating buckets. And in those days I never had elevators. So he went by the steps and he sat on the couch. Except that couch, as soon as he sat down, two waiters come up and they picked him up, two guys, and they take him downstairs. That was the elevator. So they took him down a whole flight, and then he's sorry, and he said, no, I didn't need to go, and he wanted to go back up. They took him back up. He gets back up, goes to his room, and later in the evening, this fellow comes into the Rebbe's room, and he spent a long time secluded in the room with the Rebbe. And no one knows what they spoke about. But a few months later, when he went back to his home, back in Russia, a young man showed up, and rumor had it that it was this guy. He became a chassid. And the Rebbe Mara said that for generations there hadn't been such a pure neshama that came down to this world. Alas, he came down into the wrong space. And I realized no one can take him out. And the only way to get him out was if I go myself directly and use all my powers to walk inside there and to elevate him. So I had to check into that place, go into that space, right into there. He did TP, right? He's the Kesher Nafshi of it. And he walked to that space and he picked him up and he got him out of that space. So sometimes, yes, neshamas of holy people could be born into wrong spaces. And maybe that's part of what it is. So back inside, David HaMelech says, "V'libi cholal b'kirbi she'ein lo yetzer hara k'araga b'tainis." He destroyed the yetzer hara through his fasting. So he was fasting for what he had done with Bathsheba, the Pashtus, and as a result, he says, "V'libi cholal b'kirbi." Every one of us has inside our hearts a nefesh elikis and a nefesh habamis, as we'll see in a moment. David HaMelech says, "I don't have a yetzer hara. Doesn't exist." Aval. Whoever didn't achieve this level, even if he has more merits than demerits, he's not in the slightest bit on the level of a tzaddik. The Eibishter saw, God saw there were very few tzaddikim in the generations. Later on, he's going to tell us that it says that there's 18,000 tzaddikim neshamas in all generations. That's it, in all generations. It's not relevant for us to be a tzaddik because most of us, that's not the issue we face. Right. So what did Hashem do? He spread them out over all the generations. Ahmad, he stood.
How many altogether?
It says 18,000.
Altogether, from the beginning of time for them.
It doesn't mean 18,000 people, 18,000 sources of neshamas. So good luck figuring out how many people that could be, because every neshama could be fragmented and broken down. Omadu Shoslon, he went and planted them, behold, over in every generation. Tzaddik is the foundation of the world. So, what do we have over here? That a Beinani is someone who is not shaykh, not relevant to any Averis. And it's very hard to reach this level. And this is your work. So this book is called the Book of the Beinanim. What's that? The book of? Strugglers, intermediary people, regular people, learning how to control the insides of who we are. When you control the inside, you become strong, you become powerful. Let's learn how to do it.
Fast to get there.
To get where?
To the beginning.
Is it possible for you to just
Realistically.
let me rephrase that question?
2025.
Is it possible for you to not speak lashon hara?
Yes.
Is it possible for you to not think lashon hara?
Think.
I don't know.
Why not? You just got to work hard on it. Yeah, it's hard work, but it's possible, right? Of course you could do it. To explain this,
But all the virus is possible for us to only be struggling and not do anything wrong.
every moment of your life, you have the question: should I do it or not? The main, I think one of the main thrusts of being able to shift your space, right, is like, let's say, if God is a big judge out there, and he's warning you what to do, what not to do, right? So there's a good chance that you'd be like, leave me alone. How do most of us, how we train to celebrate Motzi Yom Kippur?
That you're lucky that you live to see a Yom Kippur.
But what happens when Yom Kippur's over, right? Yom Kippur, you say, everyone's serious, Ne'ilah, we serious, and then what happens? Ne'ilah's
Yeah,
over.
good.
Party time.
It feels like a relief.
Yeah.
What's the relief?
I'm clean. I'm clean.
Intensity.
I'm clean, and the judgment is over. I survived, and it's all good, hopefully.
No, okay, that's not how I was trained.
So how are you trained?
I was trained that Rabbi Saul Salamti said that if a person would live, if Yom Kippur would come once in a life, that people would wish people that they would be zeicha to go through a Yom Kippur, because it cleans you. So after
Right.
Yom Kippur, you're tired. That's the only time you're like a real.
Beautiful. How do you feel now?
What?
So what do you feel? So what are you gonna do when you're pure? And
You feel good.
Person.
Feel like a new person. Yeah.
right,
So it's a relief, not for good.
beautiful.
Yeah.
So many people, when they get to the Motzi Yom Kippur, what do they feel? A sense of
Elevated.
relief that I survived this court case and now I'm good. And what we want to do is get to a point that you realize that you downloaded energy from Hashem. You needed your neshama to be empowered. Yom Kippur is achas bashana. It got your neshama to be connected to Hashem. And so now go use that connection. You plugged in the machine and you downloaded all the power that you need. Now you want to go activate the power in your life. Beautiful, awesome.
By doing mitzvahs.
Let's learn how to do it. But I'm saying, I'm answering the question. You said, is it possible to not do Averis? Yeah, if you believe that God's a judge, then all you got to do is just make sure he doesn't see. Or don't die today, die tomorrow. Because if you die today, then you died in the last, that's
Sometimes
what's
I don't
ridiculous.
have the energy to choose the right thing.
Right, but what if you come to realize that the right thing in your life is a godly power and it brings about like incredible things?
I know that because I feel it when I do choose
So the
right
more
thing.
you do it and the more
But
you
sometimes I
activate.
have no energy to choose the right thing.
Correct. And we're going to learn now to understand and identify in yourself what's that called when you have no energy. Rav Chaim Vital was a student of the Arizal. The Arizal didn't write anything. Whatever he wrote was committed to writing by a student of Chaim Vital. So when it says Rav Chaim Vital, what it means is the Arizal. And he says, B'sharei akdusha, uveitz Chaim Shai Nun Perek Beis. This is what he says. Dilchol ish Yisrael, every single Jew, echad tzaddik ve'echad rasha, whether he's a tzaddik or a rasha, what does he have? Yesh shtei neshamas. Everyone has two souls. Ukedichsiv, as it says, uneshamas ani Osisi. So this is a pasuk, and what it says is that Ruach milafona yatov u'neshamis ani asisi. So neshamis ani asisi is in. Sorry, it's in the plural basically. The pasuk says Ruach milafona yatov, which is the beginning of the pasuk, that a spirit comes from me, one spirit, ruach, and then the pasuk switches to plural and says "Neshamis and Yasisi." From this, the Arizal explains, and this is probably the most fundamental nekuda. That's why it's in chapter 1 of Chassidus, that there are two of you, not one of you. Shehein shtei nefashos. Most of us know we're very well connected to the fact that we have a yetzer toiv and a yetzer hara. This has nothing to do with that, or at least very little to do with that. It's not an inclination to do bad, an inclination to do good. You are schizophrenic. You have a bipolar personality. All those things we talk about, yeah, that's everyone. Every single Jew, that's what a Jew is.
A real dissociative disorder.
Yeah. A Jew has two souls.
Well, why is it?
A Jew
Why
and
is
not
it not
human.
based
This
on
is
the
specifically.
This is a Jew. A Jew has, the end of this paragraph will discuss every human being. But a Jew is a very, very conflicted being, because he has two souls vying for control over his personality. I think nowadays, very interesting, in America you probably see it, where there's two parties. And, it never used to be as polarized as it is now. Now we have to make everything glamour and exciting, and almost like as if, if that president gets in, then our world falls apart. And then you discover that your team won, and your team is the one who's causing all the problems in Israel now. That's another issue, right? So much for the president everyone was hoping for, whatever, and the guy turns out to, so far, sorry, not what we wanted. Separate conversation. So there's two parties vying for the government. One is a democratic, liberal type of party, and the other one is a more conservative type of party. Now, their whole way of thinking is different. They have a different intellectual ideas of how to run life, and different feelings, different everything. The whole system is different. And the question is, who controls the entire government, the House, the Senate, and the Congress, and everything else is the control. That's you. You have two beings, and they're both fighting for control over you. What are they called? Nefesh Elikis and Nefesh Bahamis. Not good and bad. Not at all. Godly and animalistic. And that's important to understand. Let's label the neshamas. One is Nefesh Achas. Mitzad HaKlipa Vesitra Achara. The one soul is Klipa and Sitra Achra. What does that mean? Klipa and Sitra Achra. What is Klipa?
Pieces?
A shell.
Shells, yeah.
Klipa is a shell. A shell and the other side. What's a klipa? Is a shell a bad thing?
No.
Would you ever buy a banana if it didn't have a peel? Would you ever buy an egg in the store if it didn't come with a shell? You want the peel. You want the shell to be there. You don't eat it, but it's protecting the thing itself, right? So the problem is that sometimes you mistake the shell for the fruit. And the sitra achra means the other side. And that's very, very, very important, because we're not here to destroy the Yetzer Hara. We're here to work and appreciate that he's a klipa, a shell, and a sitra achra, the other side. And it gives you life. The animal soul.
Is the Yetzer Hara?
Sitra achra is the other side. Everything is not godly is the other side. In chapter 6, we're going to discuss what it is. Sitra achra means the forces of
So when I destroy
self,
Yetzer
ego.
Hara, so what is our job? Not to destroy it, but what?
Well,
To
look here.
recognize it?
The nefesh habamis is enclosed in your blood, and it gives you life. It says, the soul of the flesh is in the blood. What does that mean? It means the nefesh habamis makes you function, makes you live. Why do you eat every day? You eat because you want to live. And why do you work? Because you want to exist. And why do you breathe? Most of what you do is to feel yourself. So nefesh habamis is not bad. He's just the animalistic part of you. And ki nefesh habasar badomhi, the the life of the flesh is in the blood. The blood is the life of the flesh. It flows through you. And because of that desire to be, again, in and of its own, it's a good thing. When your neshama, if your neshama were to take over, what would happen? You wouldn't be. What would your neshama say? Olam haba, who needs to be here, b'chlal? I'd much rather be in the next world. Your neshama doesn't want to be. Your animal soul wants to be. And here comes a super important component. He's going to show us how to identify the nefesh habahamis. Now let me preface, right? When you're parenting, it's critical to know who's talking. Is my nefesh habahamis talking or my nefesh elikis talking? And it's very difficult to discern. Because if you have a kid who's not putting on tefillin, and you're telling the kid to put on tefillin, is that nefesh elikis, godly soul, or nefesh habahamis, animal soul? Which one's telling the kid to put on tefillin? Well, let's identify. Let's crystallize who's telling him. It looks like, this is the problem, it looks like the nefesh elikis is talking.
The question is why you're saying it.
Here's the rule. When the nefesh elikis talks, kol mi sheyesh bo yiras shamayim, what does the Gemara say? Dvarav nishmoim. If you have yiras shamayim, your words are heard. Or as Rabbeinu Tam would say, Dvarim hayotzim min haleiv, nichnasim el haleiv. If it wasn't nichnas el haleiv, it's probably because it wasn't yotzei min haleiv. If it comes out of your heart, it'll penetrate the heart of the recipient. The question is, where's it coming from? And it's critical to understand that. Because what I'm saying is, how can you b'chal Shabbos? But what I mean is,
You're an embarrassment.
you're an embarrassment to me, exactly.
Right, but what happens if you're just feeling activated inside? You're not saying, you're not reacting, but
So you need
you're
to,
just like,
the energy of where it comes from is the key. And the nefesh habahamis is not a yetzer hara. He's a full-fledged system, a full-fledged nefesh. And when you understand his core functions, you can identify when you are being hijacked by him. Here's how. The nefesh habahamis has 4 foundations of negativity in him. What are they? So there are 4 elements: fire, wind, water, and earth. Or in the order here: fire, water, wind, and earth.
Can you say it again?
Fire, water, wind, and earth. You ever see the periodic chart?
My son.
So the periodic chart looks like it has all these elements. The elements that are relevant to us are these 4.
My son reads all these like
Science books?
anime, and no, he loves like
Yep.
anime. Like that's what he does all day. He reads like all these fantasy things, and he always tells me about these 4 elements.
Mhm.
And then it comes from the Tanya. It comes from the.
Yeah, it's rooted in Sefer
Aren't we
Hakir.
all made before?
What?
Aren't we all made a hell of a learning
Yep,
about it now?
you do.
You have somebody to coach
You have these 4, but first of all,
I did not learn this.
the world is made of these 4
I didn't learn
elements,
anything about them.
and your soul is made of these 4 elements, and there's many, many, many expressions of them. But the one he's going to discuss now is 4. It's all like 4 experiences inside you, right? So just like existence has fire, wind, water, and earth, so too look at yourself and you'll see it.
Of course, we learned this before. I did not learn this ever, and I never heard this concept in my life.
Here we go. In your soul, what's the fire?
So you're saying it's
Very
4
easy to
experiences?
identify. It's 4 experiences.
Anger?
At all times?
Anger. Anger is fire, right?
Yeah. I'm
Not
saying
all
these
time.
4.
No.
These
Depends.
are states of being?
States of sometimes, yeah.
You
Not
can only do one
always.
of each?
Would it be like a passion or
When
something?
you're passionate, what's passion exactly?
It's not fire.
Watch. Well, fire is more like dainu kas v'gaiva misoid eish
Is
and
fire
igla
destructive?
it has to be negative.
Could be.
It can be destructive.
Could also warm you up.
Right, so
Depends on what it is. When it's anger, what does it do?
it's not a negative thing.
The nefesh habahamis
It's not.
has 4 foundations. When you are in the foundation of nefesh habahamis, you will know about it. Very simple.
These specific fire is specifically kas and gaiba. You're saying that's what he's saying.
Since he said
Yes, those are examples. Yes,
There's more. That could be
yes. It's the family of kas and gaiva.
himself.
Yummy,
more.
yummy.
Anything that falls
When you are angry, meaning frustrated, is most likely part of the family of angry, annoyed. Right? It's when you're stressed out. And not accepting. You see the fire? It's very easy to discern the fire. If you're talking to someone and the fire is on inside you, makes no difference what you're saying. What you're communicating is nefesh habamis. And nefesh habamis causes separation and division. It's a klippa and sitra achra. It'll never get through. It's a key in chinuch to understand that what you want to do is be able to talk from, it's being able to talk from a space of authenticity. That's what it is, genuine. Do you care about me? That's nefesh elikis. Do you care about you? That's nefesh habamis.
The interesting thing is when we tell this to our kids, they say, you care more about Hashem than about me. That's exactly what they say.
It's not Hashem, it's not talking about the social look and how I'm doing and
Right. So hard. So, because you have to like be,
You have to be in
do you know what it means? You want your kid to be frum, to be religious basically. What needs to happen is very simple. You need to be religious. And you say, I'm frum. I didn't say frum. I said religious, observant. Frum is a made-up term. I know where it comes from. And what frum says is basically, you better do this or else, otherwise this happens, that happens. Like, what?
Form is based on externalities.
If you show your child the expression of nefesh elikis in you, and the child sees you working on nefesh elikis, then what the child got is nefesh elikis expression. So when you're angry and when you're angry or arrogant, there's two types of arrogance you'll see. But when you're arrogant and you're balgaiva, so that's what the child's gonna get. So now you're wondering, I don't understand. I told the kid to keep Shabbos and I told him he's not listening to me. Kinderlach, they don't listen to parents. No, they're just more plugged in, very, very connected to your energy. Your angel is nefesh habamis, so that didn't work.
question. What happens when you, let's say, because of what we're hearing and what we now know, we get elevated to the point that we're connected to our own nefesh elikis, and we mean it for real, and we're not invading their lives and trying to put
Right.
things on the right. So we got to that space, but then you're around other people that didn't get there.
You mean if someone else around you is not in that space?
Right.
There's always going to
And
be,
then they're not understanding that.
very
other
good, there's
person's
always going to be a
life.
nefesh elikis and a nefesh habamis answer to that question
Right, so then
too.
you're gonna react.
What
to
we
that
want to
other
learn,
person's
what we
reaction.
want to learn is how to start operating and answering the question of this person, and so too, let's say a spouse or someone else who's not on board with me, I need to be answering all those questions from a perspective of nefesh elikis, nefesh habamis. The nefesh elikis, let me simplify it. What does God want? Channel that down. Nefesh habamis, what do I want?
So clear.
Huh?
It's not always so crystal clear. What does Hashem want from you right now?
Right. The clarity, I think, is in identifying the experience that you have. When you're angry, now you're clear. Look at these ones. These four Yesodis. If you find yourself in these four Yesodis, even if the subject matter of what you're saying happens to be holy, it doesn't work. V'tayvas hatanugim misoid hamayim.
This is the second thing.
This is number two. This is water now. Water is the desire, the pleasures, right? When you're in that space. Ki hamayim matzmichim kol minei tainug. Water is about pleasure. Sometimes you're looking, I want to enjoy myself. I want to feel pleasure. That
That's
feeling
why I
of
love
pleasure.
waterfalls, ocean.
So why does nature make us feel close to Hashem?
Because you feel. Oh, I heard actually.
That could be very nice. Not
I
the
heard-
same. The,
I heard something. I thought it was based on the Tanya. That
Yeah.
I heard this. That because when a person is born, their neshama is detached from the Eibster, and so and it's always searching. And when you're in nature, you feel the Eibster, so you feel connected.
yeah.
I thought someone said that.
Very true, because there's no hustle and bustle blocking you. But we're talking about things that are happening inside your soul. Understand that when you're looking for tainug and you're looking for pleasures, that's the water, right? So very often we're doing that all the time. We're trying to find entertainment, pleasures, all that. That's animalistic, and it's the water.
Every middle also has a ruchni to part with. Kas, Canoeis, we see Pinchas was angry and he killed, and it was a good thing.
The difference is, are you angry and therefore operating? or are you first starting with your seichel, and your midas come from your seichel? So when the midah is leading to the seichel, that's a problem. When the seichel leads to the midah, that's good. Which is why we'll learn in chapter 9 that the difference between nefesh elikis and nefesh bamis is where does it originate? Nefesh bamis originates in the heart. Nefesh elikis originates in the brain. Here we go. Frivolity, scoffing, just
Earth?
the ruach.
Wind?
Wind.
Wind. Hisparus is just like
Levin.
empty words, empty speech and talk. All that's Yisod Ruach when you're in that space. And the final one is ve'atzlus misoy de offer. Laziness and sadness are the foundation of earth.
That's my struggle.
So that's like when you're just down, right? And you don't have any more koyach. So whenever you find yourself in any one of these spaces,
The earth is the lazy part.
laziness, yeah, it's easy to understand why.
Yeah, literally.
Depression, right? So I'll give you one example of this. Here's one example, right, which is laid out later on in chapter 26.
That's what I struggle with, the earth.
When you do an avera, you did something really bad, and then you come into daven. What do you say to yourself? Low life. How could you daven now, right? And you get into a sense of guilt. Who's talking? Nefesh bamis. How do I know? Well, you just saw. That's why. I said, what do you mean? I'm sad because I did an avera. What, should I be happy if I did an avera? Well, I don't know. 1 second. Happiness is which one? Nefesh elikis. Sadness, nefesh bamis. So should you be happy for doing an avera? Yeah. Because you did an avera. So what do you think you need? You need to empower the nefesh elikis now. Now you have to learn how to do that because you can't be happy for doing an avera. But you certainly need to be happy. So the point is, it looks like the subject matter is, I'm sad for an avera. No. So here's what we learned. Summarize today's learning. What we're talking about is 4 foundations of the nefesh abamis: fire, water, wind, and earth. And you need to know which one you're in, because when you're in one of those experiences, the nefesh abamis is talking. And when you're in an authentic space, chapter 2, that's nefesh elikis. When you talk from authenticity, the nefesh abamis down, nefesh elikis is up. And that's why your words get through. Because all of us have 2 souls. And those 2 souls are when we intensify the power of the nefesh elikis. That's our koyach. And that's what we want to get to. The power of nefesh elikis in our lives. Because that's what a Jew truly is. Next time, we'll deal with over here, hold the marker for next time, is that midos tovos, good attribute to have, are also nefesh bamis. Sometimes. The nefesh bamis is not a bad guy. He's just an animal. Animals, it could be bad. Depends where you meet them and what you do with them. If you know how to handle the animals, wonderful beings. They can do a lot of good for you. So we don't want to destroy the animal. Good means come from the animal too. We want to work with the animal and be able to guide him in the right direction. I think we'll stop over there for that